Our Across the Aisle segment tonight. Show a conservative a gallon of milk, and they'll say, well, it's a gallon of milk. Show it to a liberal, and they'll say it's a symbol of racial purity for white nationalists. It's the Red Scare all over again. But instead of communists supposedly lurking around every corner, this time it's racists lurking everywhere. And while racism is certainly a problem in our nation, nobody is denying that, do hysterical and unfounded accusations of mass racism from liberals help right the racial divide in our nation? I don't think so. With me now, Democratic strategist Joel Payne. Joel, good to see you.
Hi, always a pleasure.
All right, Joel, let me put that question to you to start out the segment. I mean, I think that the racial divide, the narrative coming from the left has ramped up in the past year and a half since Donald Trump's campaign against Hillary Clinton and then since his inauguration. In your opinion, do these accusations of mass racism or former DNC Chair Howard Dean saying that anybody who votes for a Republican in the midterms is racist, does that kind of rhetoric actually help heal racial divide in America?
Well, first and foremost, we all have to agree, milk is delicious. So
I'm actually allergic to milk, so I will disagree with you on that.
Oh, no. Look, there's hyperbolic rhetoric on both sides. I certainly would not accuse everybody who cast a vote for Donald Trump of being a racist, though I would say that there are many people who voted for Donald Trump, and I think the president himself, who has a blind spot on race issues and racism. In terms of it being a new Red Scare, I think that's an inappropriate comparison. I wouldn't compare the two. I think it's healthy for us to be on the lookout to make sure that we are being welcoming and that we're being responsive to a really diverse melting pot of society that we have. But I wouldn't call anything that's going on right now a Red Scare. I'm sure there are examples on the extreme on both sides. You know,
well,
I'm sure there's that term again, both sides.
Yeah, let me ask you, what's the line then between keeping a lookout? Because I agree with you, keeping a lookout, for racism is a good thing. Racism does exist in our nation. Fortunately, it's not institutional like it was at the founding of our nation and up through the 1960s, but we're always going to have individuals that discriminate against black people or against women or against minorities, whatever your characteristic is. There's always going to be people who dislike you and discriminate against you because of that. We all know that as functioning adults. But what's the line between keeping an eye out for that and calling it out and becoming so paranoid that you get to the point that you're accusing every single thing the president does as being motivated by racism, or every single person the president hires, or every single person who votes for the president or who might vote for Republicans in the midterm, accusing them of being a racist?
Well, here's the line. The line is a protest in Charlottesville where people were chanting, "Jews will not replace us." That's the line. The line is having a chief strategist who bragged about his outlet being a platform for the alt-right, which is really just a coded term for racist, for white nationalists. That's the line. The line is pardoning Sheriff Joe Arpaio, who targeted Hispanic Americans outside of the law. That's the line.
Wait a second.
So
you know that
that's
Sheriff
what
Joe,
I would say the line is.
You know that Sheriff Joe was not convicted of racial profiling. He was convicted of contempt of court. So that might be a topic for a different day.
Well,
but
he wasn't convicted of anything yet. Yeah.
Right, but it didn't have to do with the racial profiling. It had to do with contempt of court. So the narrative coming from the mainstream media is a little bit warped on purpose because of that. Now, I'm not his biggest fan in the world, but I do think, in all fairness, we need to get the facts straight on that. But Joel, going back to Charlottesville for a second, I don't know anybody, and I think you and I actually talked about this last week, who isn't going to condemn that. It should be condemned. It was white supremacist terrorism. But as the largest white supremacist rally in the past 20 years, it drew a couple hundred people. That's actually a good sign for our nation, that the largest rally, the largest gathering of a terrible portion of our nation is a smattering compared to the whole of the nation. But do you not see a difference? Do you not differentiate between the fringe minority of racists, and the mainstream Republicans?
I do, but does the president? I don't think the president does. The president equivocated and basically granted them moral parity. He said that they were the same as the people protesting on the other side. By the way,
no, he said violence came from both sides. But no, Joel, I'm asking you what you think. I mean, you made a comparison. You said the line is, white supremacists in Charlottesville. Well, by making that comment, it makes it seem like you're associating the Republican Party or anybody who supports Donald Trump with those white supremacists. And I mean, to me, that's a terrible thing for Democrats to be doing, and they've been doing it for the past week. Do you not see a very clear differentiation? Or, let me put this differently, should Republicans not differentiate between, mainstream progressives and radical left-wing groups like Antifa?
Here's what I want my Republican friends to do. make sure that when you're nominating a candidate for president that they are not signed, sealed, and delivered by David Duke. Make sure that when you are pushing forward policies, that they are policies that do not target minority groups in this country. That's why people feel so strongly on the other side that this president has certainly not been, I'm trying to be generous here, but this has not been a president who's been a friend to people who are not white men in power. This president has not made
I guess
people
I don't
like
know.
me
I
feel
don't know
very
what
welcome.
substantiation there is behind that. I don't know what substantiation there is behind that. I mean, you didn't answer my question. Should Republicans not differentiate between, the riots in Berkeley, these anarchist, left-wing Antifa thugs, and mainstream progressives? Should we not differentiate between those two? Should we just lump it all together as being the liberal left?
I'm not defending that, and I don't think we should. And by the way, you've got a friend in me. I think that there's a lot of sensitivity on college campuses. I went to Brown University, and I would say that my university has been guilty of this as well, of not welcoming all opinion. So I got you on that. I agree with you. I have no problem condemning violence, and I have no problem condemning people who are cracking down on free speech. But you asked me where the line is, and I'm telling you that's where the line is, and that's why there's a lot of people who are fired up about this president and about his way of governing and his way of dividing this country.
Right, and that's where my point is, that I think it's a mistake to make it seem like white supremacists are associated with Donald Trump. It's actually a narrative coming from the left. They have it in their playbook that came from Media Matters to associate liberals with white supremacists. No, he hasn't. He didn't associate with these people. He condemned these people. It's true that there's violence coming from both sides. That's not a false statement that he made. Perhaps he said it inartfully, and then he came back 2 days later and rephrased it. That's all there is to it. There's no more reason to associate white supremacists with Donald Trump than there is to associate Antifa thugs with mainstream progressives. And I don't think that it heals racial divide in our nation to pretend anything else. Joel, they are telling me in my ear that we got to go.
Liz,
Go ahead. Last word, though.
I was just going to say really quickly, it's important when the president is not clear about that. That's important. The president cannot be on the fence about white supremacists and white nationalists and right and wrong. Sorry, didn't mean to take you over your time.
I'm going to blame you when they yell at me later. Joel, thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate it.